Football stadiums have come in all shapes and sizes, and while the ones of today are much more standardized than they used to be, this wasn't always the case, and in many cases, you would have features that would really stand out. These are the bizarre features of past football stadiums. So the first feature on this list is baseball features. As we know, many stadiums used to be multi-purpose and shared by both baseball teams and football teams, and at some stadiums the transition was more seamless than others. But probably one of the most noticeable and notable features of baseball at a football stadium would be when the infield was part of the football field. When this would happen, you would have football being played on a dirt surface instead of grass, at least in early season games, when the MLB season was still taking place. Another feature would be having dugouts near the football field, and also in some cases, a curved shape to the seating bowl, shaped to that of a baseball stadium, as not every multi-purpose stadium was of the circular cookie-cutter design. Which leads us to our next one, which are dead zones. So some stadiums would have retractable seating, which would make the transition much easier and simpler between baseball and football, but sometimes you would be stuck with fixed seating that would often create dead zones on the field or in the stands. One of the more notable football dead zones would be that of Cleveland Stadium, where you would have a massive gap on both sides between the sidelines and the seating. A famous one of a dead zone in the stands would be that of the San Francisco 49ers Candlestick Park, where seats would be pointed in the wrong direction to an extent where they were basically unusable, though to just a small amount. The circular cookie-cutter stadiums were much better at avoiding these issues, or ones with retractable seating like Minneapolis's the Metrodome. Some of the multi-purpose stadiums were not built with such a standardized design, and ultimately those issues would show. And in other cases, you would have it where a stadium was just built way too big and built with the idea that it would be used for events other than football, such as the original Soldier Field and the LA Coliseum. At these stadiums, seats were essentially cut off due to the fact that they just wouldn't have much of an ideal view of a football field. In the case of the LA Coliseum, which exists much closer to its original form than Soldier Field, and wouldn't be considered a past stadium, the seats in the dead zone have since been removed. Next on this list we have the early indoor stadiums. While most would believe that the Houston Astrodome was the first indoor stadium in sports, there were actually some instances where football was played indoors before this. In the early 1900s, Columbia University would have a football field indoors with its Columbia Coliseum, though the playing surface was all dirt. In 1932, what could be considered the NFL's first championship game was played inside at Chicago Stadium. This would require the game to be played on tree bark on top of concrete and on a much smaller than regulation size football field. In addition, there would be no field goals in this game. Going back to the bizarre features of the structure of stadiums, there would also be movable and removable seating and sections. Aside from retractable seating, there were limited instances where seating and entire sections could be movable or removable. Mile High Stadium in Denver and Aloha Stadium in Hawaii would both have this. Aloha using compressed air to move the sections, and Mile High using a system of hydraulics and water bearings. This would make the given configurations for football and baseball much more seamless and eliminate dead zones. As far as removable seating is concerned, when the Oakland Coliseum's Mount Davis structure was built and opened in the mid-1990s, it would not just be bad due to the fact that outside stadium views would be blocked due to the structure, but also due to the fact that it would not have retractable seating to switch between baseball and football. Instead, sections of seating would have to be put together and taken down every time when switching between the two sports, with each back and forth transition costing an estimated $250,000. Even though this configuration was built not even 30 years ago, it was probably one of the worst and most expensive ones ever. And finally we have our miscellaneous category. Just a few random ones here. JFK Stadium, also known as Philadelphia Municipal Stadium, would have temporary train stations built to accommodate the crowds of the Army-Navy game. College football's original Stanford Stadium would have fencing around the stands in the lower bowl, separating crowds from the track and the football field. And finally, another baseball feature, at Dolphins Stadium, now Hard Rock Stadium, due to the space left from the bullpen and the dugouts, there would actually be field-level standing areas during football games. So those are just some of the bizarre features of past football stadiums. They're a little bit harder to come by in today's football stadium landscape, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching.